When do I find better music than that? Um, Welcome everybody to an exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Allen Ulrich, here with Bob Rose. How you doing tonight, Bob?
I'm hanging in there, Alan. Trying to deal with the schizophrenic weather up here, but other than that, getting ready for the holidays and trying to stay alive until they get here.
Well, it was how cold was it? It was in the 40s, for lows this weekend. It was in the 70s today. It'll be back in the 40s tomorrow, and then it warms up again this weekend. So we're kind of dealing with that same kind of schizophrenia right now. So, all right. So I called this episode "Ugly" because there's no other way to describe that game other than the fact they almost threatened us with overtime.
Yeah.
I'm so glad Brian Brzee said, I am not playing another quarter of this awful football, because that was brutal. That was awful.
God, yeah, it was. And yeah, the word that I used in my post game article was agonizingly almost went into overtime. The fans that the people that endured this for the 60-minute fiasco that it was are either true fans or getting paid to watch it. And even then, I question whether you get paid enough. It was just. I realize a win is a win is a win, but the bottom line is this was just a bad football game between two really bad football teams.
Yeah, I mean, the Giants don't have anything, and their coach is a dead man walking. I cannot imagine the Giants keeping him another year, especially if Saquon Barkley wins the league MVP. You've got to fire the GM. And I think Barkley is a shoo-in for the MVP personally. I don't see how anyone else, especially if he hits the 2,000-yard mark, how does anyone else even win that? It was an ugly, ugly game played by two really bad teams. And I was really disappointed in the game plan that Kubiak came up with for Sunday. And also I was really disappointed in that offensive line.
Oh, God, yeah.
For the offensive line to have finally be together since the third play of week 3.
Yep.
They looked awful. I thought the backups looked better than they did when they were playing, just because of how I was shocked. Even Fuaga looked bad.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's why the Saints offense couldn't do anything, because if you tried to pass, he had a free rusher coming. Mm-hmm. If they tried to run, unless they got a quick burst out the hole, somebody was getting in from the backside to run a play down. And that offensive line playing as badly as it did against, and how many times did Moose Johnson say it? These are a bunch of backup guys who just signed in off the street, off of other people's practice squads, and they look like all pros out there.
Yeah.
It was just, that was the thing that I found most frustrating about this entire game, more so than any other thing, the play calling or Carr's play or the running game or anything. I just found that offense's inability to get anything going, and that offensive line's inability just to blow these guys off the ball and just run it down their throats. I thought that was a shocking thing.
Yeah, without a doubt, I was surprised. And in fact, I paused the game 3 or 4 times just to check and make sure that all 5 starters were still on the offensive line, because that's how bad it was. I thought Shane Lemieux was in the game, or I thought Nick Saldivari, who I knew wasn't because he was on IR, in the game, et cetera. Now, and I'm to say that I'm not a big fan of Cesar Ruiz is like saying, Hitler had a little bit of a temper problem.
He had a little issue with Jews.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you run any kind of combination package at Ruiz, and I mean, he's flailing at air. But even besides that, Penning had one of his worst outings. Fuaga probably did have his worst outing, like you said. Eric McCoy, looked stiff and upright. Lucas Patrick looked like an undrafted rookie. It was just, and I thought to myself, in fact, I found myself writing this and I deleted it because it just sounded so ridiculous to me. That I started to point towards, the unit hasn't played together in a while. It's a lack of cohesion. I'm like, wait a minute. No, that's not true. Because they haven't played together for a while in the regular season, but they played together. This was your starting five from the onset of minicamp. Every single rep, every single drill, every single snap until week 3 were these five together. So that cohesion should have taken about a drive to a drive and a half to get back. And I thought they looked worse as the game went on.
Yeah, I absolutely. I thought, okay, the first half was a little rough. They looked pretty ragged. They're going to come out in the second half, and they're just going to buckle down and just pound it inside on them all game. And it never did. It never happened. Hemisphere is exactly right. It doesn't matter if Hainer or Rattler is playing next week. Yeah. This O-line is going to be terrible. Maybe they were playing down to the competition. I don't know.
You're 4-8 coming into the game, though. I mean, there ain't very far down to go.
And I say that, and I watched that, and this really isn't a fair comparison, but I watched that Buffalo Rams game afterwards, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you telling me the Saints defense is playing better than Buffalo's defense, right now? Because he looked rough. Stafford looked rough in the first half of that game, and once they figured out they could run the ball, they pretty much took it over. But for a good half, he couldn't get anything going in the passing game. And I'm watching Stafford just look like the 2009, 2010 Stafford, not showing any sign of age, moving well, just slicing and dicing that Rams defense apart. And, the Bills defense apart like that. And I'm going, the Bills are somebody who's actually in strong consideration to be the AFC representative for the Super Bowl. Excuse me. So I don't know what to make of this. I just felt like they were flat all game. The defense was just doing things because the Bills were being quarterbacked by, not the Bills, I'm sorry, the Giants being quarterbacked by their version of Hainer or Rattler.
Yeah.
That's basically what I saw out there. And thank God they couldn't run the football either. Mm-hmm. It was just frustrating that after all that, I'm sorry, I got to bring up one other thing too. I don't understand why Demario Davis gave himself up.
Me either.
I don't know what he was thinking. And that's, I guess that kind of goes back to the whole game. It's like the team didn't even really want to be there and play that day, and they just wanted this to be over with. And I think I don't know if Demario thought there was only a minute left in the game and they were out of timeouts. I don't know what he was thinking. I mean, he figured out after he sat down and started to run towards the sideline, hey, I could run and score. Mm-hmm. You're right. Demario wasn't even touching the game. I said that. I'm like, get up, run. Why are you going down? Run. And he just, that's why the officials just kind of blew it dead, because they're like, okay, he's sitting down. He thinks the game's over. And so we had to watch if he just scores or runs down the field and gets it to a 17, field goal range, 17-11 game, they got to score a touchdown to tie. I don't know. I just felt like this was just I don't know.
You know what this looked like to me on both sides, and the Giants are playing for the number one overall draft choice.
Yeah.
But this looked like the last game of the season
Hmm.
between two double-digit loss teams that are just you have maybe a handful of guys on either side that are really still playing hard, but most of them are mentally and emotionally checked out. Physically, their bags are packed at home, ready to hit wherever they go for off-season vacation as soon as they get home. It had that kind of feel to me.
Yeah.
Which again made an ugly game between two ugly teams even worse. I mean, the quality of play was just putrid.
Yeah. And they weren't alone. I'll be honest with you. They weren't alone Sunday. The Falcons lost their fourth game in a row. Kirk Cousins, and remember all the people who said at the beginning of the year, look at what they got with Kirk Cousins. They got a better version than Derek Carr.
Right.
They got a much better quarterback. They got a good quarterback over there. He may be average, but he's a good kind of average. He has thrown 9 interceptions and 0 touchdowns in 4 games.
I'll tell you, I love to say I told you so in the first place, but I really love to say I told you so when it comes to Kirk Cousins.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you knew this was coming. He was a streaky quarterback. That was the thing. Kirk Cousins' name was used to describe average quarterback play.
Yeah.
And that's why, when they were talking all this stuff about, Cousins is going to get this team to do these things and do all this stuff. No, he's not. No, he's not. You wasted $250 or $150 million, whatever it was you paid him, and you're stuck with him for 4 years. You might be able to dump him after a couple of years, but that's why Raheem Morris is like, oh, no, we're sending him back out there. We're not playing panics. We're going to send him back out there because we got to justify this money that we spent on him.
You know what? If I'm Raheem, I do the same thing. I'm like, if nothing else, you're going to get $150 million beat out of you.
Yeah, exactly. And they're going to end up blowing their shot at the playoffs. Yeah, you're right. Anna. Yeah, they really are. They're gonna melt down, and they probably will finish a game, maybe 2 games ahead of the Saints, second place. And the Bucs are probably going to win this division at 9-8 or something ridiculous like that. And what's funny about it is, I saw this earlier, looking at the way the schedule is playing out, that the Bucs may very well have the division locked up in that last game, or not locked up, but if Atlanta wins and they lose, Atlanta has a shot to get in the playoffs.
Oh yeah.
So Atlanta's going to be pulling for us to beat the Bucs, and the Bucs, that game is going to mean something to Atlanta, not so much for Tampa.
Well, and that's just it. Atlanta already owns a season sweep over the Bucs, so that's a big mark. And if somehow, some way, the Falcons, the Bucs, and the Saints finish in a 3-way tie, the Falcons have a 4-1 division record right now. So they own the tiebreakers. Because of winning with mirrors and luck and bullshit reasons so much earlier in the season. When you and I were sitting here from snap one calling them frauds, we're being proven right. But those frauds still have the inside track to the playoffs. Right.
Exactly. That's what's funny about this whole thing is, the Falcons have the division lead. Now they play Carolina, I think, this weekend.
The Falcons have at Vegas, home against the Giants, at the Redskins, and home against the Panthers to end the year.
Okay.
That should be an easy 3 wins.
I don't think they're going to beat Washington. I don't think Atlanta's going to beat Washington, and I think they're going to struggle with Carolina, because I think Carolina is playing a lot better. They've been playing a lot better since Bryce Young came back. They came close to upsetting Tampa. they came close to upsetting Kansas City. Now Kansas City plays with its food, so
Right.
it's hard to to really say, okay, Carolina's for real or not based off of those games. But Carolina is playing better. If they don't make the mistakes like fumble the ball in overtime to Tampa, they probably have a good shot of winning that game. So yeah, I don't. And the Raiders and the Raiders now going to play with Ritter. I keep wanting to say Riddler. It's
why not?
Riddler. Yeah. Yeah. Riddle me this, Batman. No, it's Ritter. So I don't know how that's going to play out.
Yes, you do.
Oh, what's going to be hilarious is that we're going to get a Ritter, probably Jake Hayner matchup in the Dome for the Raiders Saints game. It's just going to be totally ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay, Hemisphere's got a question.
I see it.
The $30 million contract guarantee. What is this injury guarantee?
Yeah, and if someone knows better, please chime in. It is my belief that the $30 million guarantee, is kicks in if he cannot pass a physical early in the off season. I know that seems an odd clause, and I thought it odd too. But it is not $30 million if he cannot finish the season, because of injury. There's roster bonuses and playing time clauses, that kick in. I don't know the specifics of that. But that's built into Carr's contract. It's built into a lot of players' contracts.
Mm-hmm.
But specifically the $30 million guarantee has something to do with with an off-season physical that's built into his contract, because a lot of people raised an eyebrow and said, well, there's no way the Saints are going to take a chance playing him because they need him to pass that physical this off-season. So it's my understanding that that's what the $30 million is. Has nothing to do with whether he finishes the season on injured reserve or not.
And the funny thing is, too, it's a hand injury. It's not a and it's a non-throwing hand injury. It's not a back injury. It's not a knee injury. It's not anything you're going to fail a physical over. He also has a concussion, and to me, that's more likely why he won't play this weekend. It's the concussion. Yeah. It's unlikely he passes concussion protocol for that, because he can play with a soft cast on his left hand.
Yeah,
Kamara's playing with a broken hand.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do that as long as it's not his throwing hand. Your opinion, when Carr did what he did and injured himself by doing that leap, did you find that to be? I think it's. Well, let me ask you this: did you find that to be just a stupid thing for him to do, or was it a guy just trying to get that first down and just run the clock out?
It was both. Courage can sometimes make us stupid. It's easy to sit here and say in hindsight, "Oh, yeah, that was stupid." But that most of the people that are saying that, at least that I've seen on social media, have a long history of Derek Carr bashing, and some of it is correct bashing. Some of it was not. That was just Carr literally just trying to get the first down, because you get the first down there, you can essentially end the game. Yeah. But like I said, in hindsight, it's easy to say that it was dumb because A, he got hurt on the play. B, he went airborne, which coaches will always tell their players never to go airborne anyway, but you're especially telling that to a quarterback. And C, he did it right on the sideline. So even if the clock didn't stop because of injury, the clock stopped because he fell out of bounds. Right. So all those things, and not to mention the play call. The play call by Kubiak, it was. It came pretty damn close to picking up the first down, no question about it. Mm-hmm. But it's not something that you need to be doing with your quarterback when you do not have Taysom Hill anymore, when you have the players of the caliber of Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler, and you're still at least mathematically alive for the playoffs. So like I said, and Anna, like I said, in hindsight, it's easy to say that it was crazy. But if you're a competitor and you have the ball in your hands and you're rounding the corner, you see that first down marker and you're aware of down, distance, time, and clock situation, you may go head first too. My initial reaction was, man, I wish he would have slid. But if he would have slid, they would have marked him down about 3 yards further back. Still would have slid out of bounds. So would have stopped the clock anyway. And if he wouldn't have gone airborne and just would have tried to duck out of bounds or lower his head, he might not have got the hand injury, but he still, in my mind, would have probably been concussed. I'm not as critical about that play as some. I understand the competitor's mentality. In my opinion, that's one of those plays where you need to live to fight another day. Because if I'm not mistaken, that was not a third down play.
No, that was a second down play or first.
That's what I thought. So I mean, you still had another down opportunity, even as poorly as you were running the ball to pick it up. So I'm not going to call it a stupid play, but Carr's got to be smarter in that particular situation.
I kind of feel the same way. I felt it was dumb for him to go airborne like that because you're going out of bounds. They're going to mark you where you jumped because you're going to land out of bounds. It's football awareness, and I didn't want him to slide. I would have liked for him to dove down and protect his head better.
Mm-hmm.
I get why he was trying to do what he did, because who's going to expect a bootleg out of him? Because every time Kamara touched the ball, the entire defense followed him. Yeah. I thought Kubiak called some horrible plays because it was now 2nd and 1, and the Saints tried twice to pick up that first down and couldn't do it. They lost yardage on 2nd down, and then on 3rd down, they couldn't get back to where they were to begin with.
Yep.
So that's what I thought was really frustrating about that. I'm like, man, you kept saying you're going to take Miller off the chain, put Miller in there and let him run up the gut. Let's see. Adam Prentice pissed me off the whole game.
Oh my God, yeah.
I'm like, this dude, your job is to friggin' block, and you can't block anybody. You're not block. You're just in the damn way. I'm old school. I love fullbacks. Adam Prentice is the worst fullback this team has had, and there's been a lot of fullbacks in this team. But when you start looking at John Kuhn, oh God, I can't believe I'm forgetting all these people's names right now. But
Kuhn and Carney are the ones that Jed Collins.
Jed Collins is another one. Heath Evans.
Burton.
Who else?
Michael Burton.
Michael Burton. Oh, the guy who was from Minnesota that we had for a long time. He was probably one of the best ones we had right before Burton and after Kuhn left. What's that? Teach Brandon on Bayou Blitz how to include chat in the podcast. Oh, okay. I got you. Yeah. I can see it because I have my monitor right here. So I can. That's why if you see me turning my head a lot, I'm reading all y'all's comments. I'm still using my iPad.
And I know Brendan can read them, but I very, very rarely see them. He just, Hemisphere, anybody else. I'm not ignoring your questions or comments. I flat out don't see them.
Oh, by the way, Hemisphere, I just realized that was the Rush Moving Pictures album you have as your profile picture here.
Awesome.
Because this is my car head working, not car as in C-A-R-R, but car as in C-A-R. Every time I saw your name Hemisphere, I'm thinking, okay, he's a Dodge Hemi fan, whatever, but Hemisphere is a Rush album as well. Just jumping off topic a little bit since we're talking about Rush, I saw a great cover band called Driven, and they did nothing but Rush songs all night, okay? They did the entire Moving Pictures album, they did 2112. They did a lot of the early stuff. They didn't do big money from Power Windows or anything like that, but they did a lot of the classic Rush stuff, and it was a lot of fun. It really was, and that drummer was good. He was really good. Before
Sean Williams, I hope you're proud. Now we'll try to work some WWE wrestling.
There we go.
It'll be a perfect show.
The funny thing about it is, and I've got some clips on my phone, but the funny thing about it was, after he did Rep Archetta, they were going to do YYZ, where they took a, not break, but the guy started talking. And he said, I'm doing this because if you look at our drummer back there, he's wiping himself down and doing a lot with his hands, getting warmed up to play YYZ. So it was a lot of fun. And it's nothing but guys in there. And you could see all these guys doing air drums the whole time. It was, including me. So it was a lot of fun. Yep. Okay. Good deal. Good deal. Absolutely. I became a Rush fan in college, and I enjoyed moving pictures, but that I'm trying to. I think it was Signals was the first album. No, it was Moving Pictures. That was the first album I really listened to from beginning to end, and it was something. It just blew my mind. So, at the English professor in me. English teacher in me loves all the literature references, so that's the other reason why I enjoyed the music so much. But anyway, I saw that, and I've been meaning to say something about it, and I just wanted to comment. And I'm like, yeah, Hemisphere, Rush Moving Pictures, gotta be a Rush fan then. So anyway, but yeah, going back to the fullbacks, Prentice had a terrible game too, and I thought that really limited the running game. Yeah, you're right. I think about Sean a lot when I see Baker Mayfield. Because Sean, if he was still in the show, every week he would bring it up. See, we should have signed Baker Mayfield instead of getting Derek Carr. We should have brought in Baker Mayfield. And I think that you're welcome, Hemisphere. I'm glad you're on the show, by the way.
Yes.
I think that, and I did see Rush like 3 times in concert. The last time I saw him was Roll the Bones tour. So I'm dating myself, but I've seen them 3 times in concert because I enjoy them so much. Anyway, the Baker Mayfield, we kept talking about him back in 2022, bringing him in. We're like, oh God, you really don't want him. He's short. He's got an attitude problem. He's not going to get along with the team. But it's hard because I'm going, well, Baker's also benefiting from a good offensive coordinator and also from having much better skill position players than the Saints have, especially right now. I mean, do you feel like in hindsight, maybe we should have gone ahead with Mayfield or we should have stuck with Carr? I mean, we've already talked about Cousins. And
right.
we both know how we feel about Cousins.
Yeah, listen, I was an advocate for signing Baker at the time. It wasn't a hill I was prepared to plant my flag and die on. Mm-hmm. But I would have understood the logic. Because at the time you had Michael Thomas, who we thought was recovering from a foot injury. You just drafted Chris Olave. You had Kamara. We didn't know that Ryan Ramczyk was going to bottom out and his career was going to go. So at that point, you still had a pretty serviceable offensive line. All things that Baker needed to be successful. That much we knew about Baker. But like I said, it wasn't a hill that I was prepared to plant my flag and die on. They went out and got Carr instead, and I'm like, okay, I could see the logic behind this too. All the same reasons why I supported bringing in Mayfield was why I supported why I understood, not supported, why I understood signing Derek Carr. Folks, those of you that are whining and crying about the money that they're paying Carr, Atlanta's paying more money, I think, to Kirk Cousins.
They are.
Tampa had signed Baker to a 1-year prove-it deal, but then after he proved it, he's getting paid more per year than what Carr is. Alan and I have said this many times. Baker Mayfield, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, Geno Smith. We could go on and on and on. There are 12, 10, 12, maybe more quarterbacks that are literally clones of each other. Where you can win with them. You might be able to sneak into the playoffs, and if the matchups fall right, maybe make a little bit of a run. If you have this, and if you have that, and if he does that, so many ifs. But with all those guys, Mayfield, Geno, Carr, Cousins, you close your eyes and you pick into the hat, and you just like Secret Santa. All right, I got Derek Carr. Let's go to work. I literally feel the same about almost all of these guys.
Absolutely, and to me, when you just watch these guys play, all these quarterbacks play out there, they're so dependent on the talent around them and the coaches around them to make them better quarterbacks. They're not Drew Brees that can elevate a team and carry. I said this, in fact, to somebody on Twitter. I said, what we're seeing now is what the Saints probably would have been like in those 2012, 2014 through 2016 years had they not have Drew Brees, but just an ordinary average quarterback.
Yeah.
Because those 7-9 teams were dragged by Drew Brees, pulling them, kicking and screaming to a win. You think about that Giants game in 2015, Giants-Saints game. It was a shootout, 52-49. And it was only that way because Drew Brees threw 7 friggin' touchdown passes.
505 yards.
Yes. And you needed him to score every time because you felt like a punt was the same as a turnover.
Yeah.
Because that defense wasn't stopping anybody. So, it's just this team is just not talented enough, and they don't have the kind of quarterback that can put the team on his back and carry them to a victory. And that's what drives people crazy about Carr or any of the quarterbacks that we mentioned if they were the starter, because they keep waiting, or they're looking for that quarterback to put the Superman cape on, crank up John Williams music, and let's go. I will drag this team to a win with an incredible last-minute touchdown pass or an incredible last-minute first down that we can steal an ugly win. And it's just not going to happen with the quarterbacks that we have. And it only happens if you have a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, literally. And it's so mind-boggling. The historical forgetfulness that a lot of these Saints fans have, because they were we all got spoiled by Drew Brees, but
sure,
those of us that are older, I mean, the Saints went 40-something years before Brees came on board, and the debate. The debate about who the greatest quarterback in this franchise history was Archie Manning, Bobby Hebert, Aaron Brooks, or maybe statistically you could throw Jim Everett in there. I'll say those names again: Archie Manning, Bobby Hebert, Aaron Brooks, Jim Everett, as a debate on who the best quarterback in your 42 year. I think it was 42 years before Brees came on.
It was 40 years.
Okay.
40 years.
In 40 years.
Was the 40th anniversary.
40 years. That's who your debate was for the best franchise quarterback of all time. The conversation should stop right there. And Alan, I know you're an Archie Manning guy. Mm-hmm. I'm a Jim Everett guy. But Hall of Famers, elite quarterbacks, perennial Pro Bowlers, these guys were not.
Yeah. I mean, Archie was the only Pro Bowler the Saints ever had until Drew. Bobby didn't make the Pro Bowl. Aaron Brooks didn't make the Pro Bowl. It was Archie Manning, poor Archie, and then there was Bobby Hebert with the Dome Patrol. And after that, you're starting to go, okay, Aaron Brooks put up a lot of numbers, but the Saints they won a playoff game with him, but the Saints only went to the playoffs one time and won one playoff game with him. They never went back.
Yep. And
So
Jim, they finally opened up the offense under Jim, but he had no defense. He had no running game.
mhm.
Yeah, he just had Quinn Early and Michael Haynes, and Willie Quinn Early, Michael Haynes, and Willie Rofe is all Jim Everett had.
Yeah, and that's why people were so mad they didn't draft Eddie George in 1996, is because, okay, now we're going to get a running back to pair with Jim Everett, and we can start winning. Yeah, I know. The conversation now is, who is the greatest Saint, excluding Drew Brees?
Right.
Because that's how they have to put every caveat is now, not counting Drew Brees, who is the best free agent? Not counting Drew Brees, who's the most important player in Saints history? Not counting Drew Brees, and you just go down the list. I know, Anna, I'm the same way. I get the nostalgia, and I can get charged with nostalgia when it comes to Archie, but Archie's raw talent, it was too good to ignore. It's just a shame that he played on such horrible teams. Now Archie's more known for his sperm than anything else because of the. Did you think about it though? I mean, Cooper, Eli, and Peyton. Peyton and Eli are both. One's definitely a Hall of Famer. The other one has an argument for a Hall of Famer. Multiple Super Bowl champions, and now you have Arch Manning, his grandson. The genes are there. If whenever Texas could have beat Georgia, if they just would have benched that quarterback and put Archie in. But I'm not going to go into that because I understand he's a senior and you want to give him his shot and everything else. But Arch is the guy who's going to carry that team. Texas would have never lost to Georgia if they would have kept Arch Manning in there. But that's me talking as a homer.
And that's why when it comes to the entire Manning family, I usually just clam up and sit here like this. Suffice to say, it is one area you and I disagree, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, my thing though with Archie, I know all his shortcomings.
Yeah.
I know all the problems. There was a lot of times where he lost games too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm well aware of that. I'm also aware that, for him, he was kind of coaching himself, and he felt, especially in those early years, he felt like he was the guy that if I don't do something, this team is going to get blown out. This team is going to lose and lose badly. Yeah. And once you get into that mindset, and here we go back to the modern era, once you get in that mindset as a quarterback, you start doing reckless things. And that is what Baker Mayfield has done. And you see him still doing this in Tampa, where he feels he's got to play hero ball.
Yep. Big time, Jameis. You can make a case that that's what Carr was doing on that leap at the end of the game.
Absolutely.
And a few of the times last year too. And that's why we go back to what we were saying about the quarterbacks. To me, the quarterback play, the overall quarterback play is just so overrated right now, because I look throughout the league and I'm a harsh judge. I'm the first to admit that. But in my estimation, there are only 6, maybe 8 quarterbacks that Absolutely. I would fear if I was a defender or defensive coordinator, that I would fear under any circumstances, down, distance, or game situation. 6, 8 tops. Does that mean that there are only 6 or 8 quarterbacks that can win a championship in this league? No, because it all depends on the team you have around them, how good at coaching they get, whether they get hot or not. I love Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford is not an elite quarterback, but you can win a world championship with Matthew Stafford in the right situation if he gets hot, because that's what the Rams did. Therefore, Matt Stafford, to me, is just on the fringe of those 6 to 8 guys that I mentioned. And that's it. I don't count the rookies in that, because I love to watch Jaden Daniels play. Yeah, I'm a big Michael Penix fan, who we haven't seen take the field at all. I'm not. I'm not going to put them in any kind of conversation yet, because it's just way too early. And Alan and I referenced RG3 with the amazing rookie year that he had. Reaching back more than that, Rick Meyer won Rookie of the Year. Those guys did absolutely nothing after their first year. So let's just wait and see. Is Jaden Daniels going to continue to get better, or have we seen the best he's got? Bryce Young, Caleb Williams, some of those other guys. Do they just need the right kind of situation, and it hasn't happened yet? So I don't count those guys in my 6 to 8 elite guys.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that about the quarterbacks, because this league has now evolved into being so quarterback centric. Quarterback is everything now. That is the most important position on the team. Defenses, because of rule changes and because of free agency, defenses are now second best, second tier. We saw that happening with the running backs, and that's why backs weren't getting paid anymore, is because they were now going to spend that money on quarterbacks and wide receivers, because if you have $1 million quarterback, you need $1 million receiver to throw to him.
You need $1 million tackle to protect him, et cetera, et cetera.
But if you look at, I had up earlier, I don't know if you guys can see very well. I'm trying to move a little bit so you can see. That is the 2009 Washington game with the famous, Robert Meacham stealing the ball and scoring. That's the end of the game. That's the interception by what's his name? McAllister, not Deuce, but Chris McAllister in overtime to end that game. And the Saints about to kick the field goal to win the game. But the Washington Redskins under Joe Gibbs won 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks. Theismann in 82. I had the 88 team up there a minute ago, and that was Doug Williams, 87, who won the Super Bowl, and then Mark Rippon in 91. You won't see that today. You won't see a coach win with 3 different quarterbacks. Even Bill Parcells won with 2 different quarterbacks. He won with Hostetler in 1990, and he won with Phil Simms in 86. And Phil Simms probably had the best game by a quarterback in NFL history in a Super Bowl. Now it's all about the quarterback carrying team to the Super Bowl. And as a result, you're not hearing about great defensive players. You might hear 1 or 2. But when we were watching football, and I'm going to say the 80s, not so much the 70s, but let's focus on the 80s. The 80s, it was the 85 Bears defense, the 86 Giants, Lawrence Taylor, Gary Reasons, Carl Banks, Harry Carson, those guys, the Dome Patrol.
Reggie White, the Eagles defense.
Reggie White, Seth Joyner, and the Eagles. Even the 49ers had a great defense. You had Charles Haley out there. You had Bill Romanowski. You had, Pierce Holt. I'm running through names of people, and people are like, I hate that guy. Hate that guy. Oh, yeah. Hate that guy.
As soon as you said 49ers, Ronnie I felt Lott. My body just go like that.
Right. But still, you had defenses that you knew the names of those guys out there. You watch a game today, and you'll watch a defense out there today. How many of those players you guys, just a casual fan, know who the hell they are? There's very few of them. I hardly know anybody's name. And I follow football fairly closely, but I'm looking at going, I don't know. I don't know who the linebacker, who's the pass rusher for the Packers. I don't know who that guy is. Watching the Giants game, I'm like, Brian Burns, wasn't he that Panthers guy? And I knew about Kenyon Thibodeau, but that was it. And I thought that was all they had out there. That kind of stuff. You go through that, and none of the defenses have nicknames. You don't even have there's not even a Ray Lewis out there anymore. just somebody where people are like, you got to block that guy. If you can block that guy, the closer you can get to it is TJ Watt in the Steelers. Yep. But other than that, most of the time you're like going, if you can block that guy, you probably have a good shot of winning, but you're probably not going to be able to block that guy. So you got to figure out how to handle him. You're not going to figure out how to shut him down, just how you're going to handle that guy. But everything's now offense. Everybody knows the offensive players' names. They know all the receivers. They know all the quarterbacks. And I think that is why average or mediocre quarterbacks are so looked down upon, because it's like now you have to be an elite quarterback just to be good, because that's who's going to carry your team is that elite quarterback, the one-man gang.
Yeah. But at the same time, the league just props up this position so much that's why that they want to force feed these slightly above average quarterbacks down our throat as elite. Lamar Jackson, elite athlete. He's not an elite passer ever. And you mentioned all those names and all those defenses, from the 80s. And almost all of them that you mentioned were NFC defenses. And the NFC went on that long run for 13, 14 straight Super Bowl victories in a row. You think of the quarterbacks that played in that time: Elway, Marino. We could throw Montana in there because he's one, in my opinion, the best to ever play.
Yeah.
But I mean, Montana was part of those 49er crews. Anyway, Elway, Marino, Kelly, Moon, Esiason, Everett, Randall Cunningham. Those guys would, and a lot of the guys that I just mentioned are Hall of Famers. Just imagine what those guys would do in today's league. They would tear it up. But the reason, outside of Montana, the reason none of those guys won Super Bowls is because why? They went up against Singletary and the Bears, LT and the Giants,
Charles Mann and the Redskins,
Charles Mann and Dexter Manley and the Redskins, Ronnie Lott and the 49ers, et cetera, et cetera. They let the defenses play. You remember, you and I are close to the same age. You remember when you made your Christmas list for for Santa, and you're flipping through the Sears catalog, and you and I were football fans growing up, and you pick which one of your favorite teams. There were 2 jerseys per team tops. You remember over half of them were either running backs or defensive players. There were only a few quarterbacks, and the quarterbacks were only the guys I mentioned, Cunningham, Montana, Elway, Marino, Fouts. I forgot about Fouts, Moon. The rest were all defensive players or running backs. Now,
for the Saints, then it was a kicker.
What? I was hoping Ricky Jackson, but you're right. Morton Anderson was more readily available than Ricky.
Yeah.
But now, if you bring back the Sears guy, now people are really thinking, what the hell are these guys talking about? But now if you bring in the Sears catalog, there's a quarterback. Every single team, I promise you. The possible exception might be Myles Garrett in Cleveland and TJ Watt in Pittsburgh. Every other team quarterback is your jersey of choice.
Yeah. Oh, and you go to the Saints website. Go right now to the Saints website and just pull up the jerseys. And these are the jerseys you will see. You will see Alvin Kamara. You're going to see Drew Brees. You're going to see Taysom Hill, Chris Olave. The defense players you might see: Cam Jordan, Tyrann Mathieu. If you're lucky, Demario Davis. That's it. That's the sum total. The bulk of it is offensive players. So it is what the league pushes. And you can pick any team. Pick any team you want. Outside of Pittsburgh, you're going to see the bulk of those jerseys to be offensive players. And one of the things that you mentioned earlier, talking about all those quarterbacks, where did the bulk of those quarterbacks play? In the AFC.
Right.
Okay. So what did the NFC do in response to that? they built up the defenses. They had all the defenses. So if there's an explanation of why the NFC won so many Super Bowls, that was it, because they knew they didn't have the quarterbacks. They had Phil Simms, they had Jim McMahon. You had those kind of quarterbacks in the Jay Schrader, who had to give way to Doug Williams so the Redskins can win their Super Bowl. But that team was known as the Hogs, and they blocked first for John Riggins. Riggins retires. They get George Rogers from the Saints. George Rogers plays, but who wins in the Super Bowl is Timmy Smith. You know, with the 200-something yards that I could have run through that Denver defense, the size holes he had. But yeah, it was that kind of stuff. So they decided early on that the way we were going to win Super Bowls, the way we were going to win championships, was to build the defense. What did the Saints do in the AFC in the late 80s, early 90s? They dominated the AFC in the regular season. I used to say it all the time. I'm like, man, I wish we were out of the NFC West and the AFC West, because we'd be rolling over through.
How many times did Bill Walsh say that if the Saints were in the AFC, they would have at least gone to multiple Super Bowls?
Yeah. The closest team you had to an NFC type team in the AFC was probably the Cleveland Browns. With Bernie Kosar, because they were built around the running game and they were built around defense. Michael Dean Perry, Clay Matthews. Yeah.
The cornerbacks, Dixon and Minifield.
Yeah. You know, they were built very much like an NFC team, but they were playing in the AFC. But yeah, that's why the Saints did as well as they did against the AFC back then. And I felt like at the beginning of this season, I felt a very 80s-like vibe to the league again, because we're all the quarterbacks this time around. They're all in the AFC again. You look at up and down that division, Bo Nix has a good shot of winning Rookie of the Year, plays in the AFC, along with Patrick Mahomes, along with, Justin Herbert, along with Josh Allen, who's has a good shot of being the AFC, the league MVP. If they don't give it to Saquon Barkley.
Right.
I think Barkley deserves it, but Josh Allen has an argument for that. Lamar Jackson.
Joe Burrow. CJ Stroud having a down year, but just still a very good quarterback.
Yeah. In the NFC, you got, Jalen Hurts, Daniels. Goff is leading probably the best team in the league, but is Goff really the piece that motivates, that drives that team?
Well, I talked about Mayfield and Carr and Cousins and a year ago at this time, a lot of people, myself included, would have put Jared Goff in that blindfolded pick a name out of the hat list.
I still kind of do, only because look at the talent he's got around him. When the Lions made that trade, they were making the trade with the idea of, this is going to be my bridge guy until I can go get somebody. And it turns out that they got a guy who was good enough to run their offense for them, as long as they didn't put it on him to carry this team.
Yeah.
They have it so that they can run the ball very effectively, and it opens up the passing game, and they gave him all-star passers to catch his passes. He is letting his playmakers do his work. He's just a symphony conductor. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm not a big Ben Johnson fan right now as a head coach candidate. And I know we're going to talk more about this when we get to the end of the season, but I'm more impressed with Ryan Cohn over there in Tampa than I am Ben Johnson, because Ben Johnson is playing with an all-star cast right now. Ryan Cohn has had to deal with, okay, I got to make Baker Mayfield. I'm making him play. I overcome his mistakes. I lost Godfrey for the season. I lost Evans for a good chunk of the season, and I'm still figuring out ways to use these running backs to win.
Yep.
And if we've learned anything over the past 3 seasons with the Saints, if not more, you're going to get a lot of injuries. So how you overcome those injuries is going to determine how good of a coach you are.
Well, and the same reason you like Cohn in Tampa Bay, and I do too, is a similar reason why I like Wes Phillips in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. I mean, for Christ's sakes, that guy made Sam Darnold look like a serviceable quarterback.
Yeah.
If you can do that, you might be my coach.
Yeah. Another example. Yeah. And who would have thought a year ago? When I saw JJ McCarthy was out for the year, I'm like, they're going to do something stupid and fire this head coach. They're going to lose all these games. Sam friggin' Darnold.
Yep.
And he has proven that he can make his offense work with Sam Darnold. So much so that I actually read some lunatic on Twitter say, maybe the Saints should go sign Sam Darnold. I'm like, are you out of your friggin' mind? I mean, that is truly the idea of that players just plug and play.
Right.
If you hate Derek Carr, you'll just really hate Sam Darnold.
Well, and meanwhile, Philly fans want to run Jalen Hurts out of town, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'll take him.
It's funny. Before this 8-game winning streak, going back to when they almost lost to the Saints, they did win that game, and then the next couple of weeks, the way they were playing, they were ready to fire Sirianni. They were like, you got to get rid of this guy. And now it looks like he has a good shot of being the NFC's representative in the Super Bowl, only because Detroit's defense is getting so beat up now that they're going to have to outscore people in the playoffs.
Jordy Hallberg asked me about that this morning. I'm like, he's like, are you worried about Detroit's defense? And I go, what defense? I'm like, the thing that worries me about Detroit's defense is that they're not going to have any human bodies left to be able to play by playoff time.
Right. Exactly. And what's going to happen is that team's going to get exhausted.
Yeah.
And because they've come close to losing games. They've come very close. They came very close against Chicago on Thanksgiving Day. They came very close a couple of times, and they've managed to pull games out to win. But when it's for all the marbles, it's you go home if you lose this game. I worry Detroit's going to run out of gas, or he's just going to gamble one time too many. That fourth down play last weekend against was it against the Chargers? Who was he playing against?
I don't remember. I know the play you're talking about. I don't remember the opponent though.
Oh, it was Green Bay. I'm sorry, It was Green Bay. It was a divisional game. He's like, okay, I can either kick a field goal here and be up by 1 with a minute some change left or less than a minute left, or I can go for the first down. Even though I'm down by 1, I go for the first down and end this thing with a field goal. And because I've used up all the timeouts, I'm going for it. And he got it, which, and a lot of people said, that's because he remembers what happened in Minnesota in 2017.
Maybe.
But as a member of the staff. But, I just worry he's going to go for it one too many times, and it's going to backfire on him badly. And their defense won't be enough to overcome it. But we'll see in the playoffs. We'll see. I'm pulling for them.
Yes.
But Green Bay scares me if I'm pulling for the Lions, just because that's a divisional foe. You're going to have to face them a third time.
Yep.
And you really struggled stopping them.
Yeah, and they're a physical team, Green Bay is too.
Oh, yeah. When we talk about them next week, to me, that is like a textbook of what the Saints should aim for as an offense. I mean, between Josh Jacobs' power running and that offensive line is just a machine. It really is. It's everything our offensive line isn't. There was last question I want to ask you before we go to talk about Bayou Blitz. Kendre Miller. I can see why Dennis Allen wanted to kill him.
Yes.
Uh, he's a frustrating back, but Kendre Miller, you're going to lean on him a lot in these next couple of games, a lot more than you've been leaning on Kamara.
I don't know that I give Kendre Miller more touches, more opportunities than I give Kamara. First of all, I definitely get Kamara his 1,000 yards. He's earned that. But dare I say, I might lean towards almost a 50-50 split, maybe 60-40 Kamara, because there's one thing I want to see out of Kendre Miller. Through the rest of the year. I know he can play. We've seen flashes. I want to see that if he can he carry a workload or at least a split workload and stay healthy. And they've got four games left to do it. My passing game is going to be no threat. I didn't have any receivers, and now I don't have a quarterback to get the ball to these receivers.
Yeah.
I want to absolutely see what Kendre Miller can do, and not just slamming them between the tackles. Everything that I do with Kamara, I want to do with Kendre Miller just to see what he can do. If he can handle it, if he can stay healthy. I wouldn't let Miller's workload surpass Kamara unless Alvin gets dinged up a little bit, and then I'm putting him on the shelf for the year too. We see you bring up Detroit. Detroit has done the split backfield between Gibbs and Montgomery to perfection this year.
Yeah.
I'm kind of taking a page out of their book and doing that same kind of thing with Kamara and Miller, because I know Kamara can do anything that I ask him to do. I want to see how much Kendre can do. So I don't know. I don't know if it's a pure 50-50 split, but it's at least 60-40.
I'll tell you what makes me frustrated about Miller more than anything else is you can see what a back that has bursts and power can do in this offense. And that's not a knock on Kamara. It's just not his game. That's not the kind of back he is. But, man, he hits that hole or he gets into that second level, and it's just so much power. And he's so fast. He is the opposite of Jamal Williams.
Yes.
And it's frustrating as hell because you feel like if we just got this every down that he was out there for 17 weeks, this team would not be 5-8.
No.
This team would be possibly 8-5, even with all the problems on defense, even with all the problems on the offensive line. He is the kind of back who can make his own hole. He's the kind of back who can push for extra yardage and get that short yardage picked up. You're not running Taysom as much as you are just because he is that kind of guy. And it makes me want one so badly for this team. I'm looking at the draft every week, every year now. I should say every week now. I'm looking at the draft of running backs going that are not named Sean Gentry, who I think is going to win the Heisman, but the Boise State back. It's not named that guy, but I'm just looking for a guy who can do what Miller teases us with and is more reliable, more dependable, because I'm like, to me, that's more important than a quarterback right now, because if you get a guy who can do that, suddenly an average quarterback like Derek Carr has so many more options because the play action game works so much better. And you now can throw the ball to receivers because safeties are cheating up because this running back is killing them. Look at what Saquon Barkley has done for the Eagles.
Exactly.
That team was not that good.
No.
Saquon Barkley is elevating. He's 1,600 yards. You have a back that has 1,600 yards and as many touchdowns as he has for the Eagles. That's a lifesaver if you're having an offense or a defense that struggles getting off the field on third down, because now you can control the clock. Now you're pushing the pressure on the other team's offense. It's such a complimentary piece. that it's, between him and Derek Henry over there in Baltimore, both of them drive me crazy because I'm like, God, that's what we need, So,
Yeah,
and that's not.
yeah, and the fact that you cannot rely on Miller, and even if he stays healthy and productive these last
Mhm.
4 games, it would still be an awful big risk to go into
Oh,
this
no, there's
offseason
no
to
way you can
rely
do
on
that.
him, which is such a shame because yeah, A, he is such a talented young man, but B,
Mhm.
you have so many other needs that you could fill with that, yeah, with that first round pick. Because I'll say it. If the Boise State back is on the board when the Saints pick, in the top 10, are you going to pass him up? I mean, we'll have plenty of offseason talk to for that.
Yeah.
But okay, say you do, and you draft somewhere else with that first round pick. With your second round pick, or third round, you're probably going to draft a back, right?
Mm-hmm.
So many other ways you could go with that. If you could rely on Kendre Miller, Alvin is still productive. You just need a compliment. Kendre could be that compliment if he could be relied on. But since he can't, you now have to pass up a defensive tackle, or you have to pass up a pass rusher, or you have to pass up a safety because you
Or a
need
tight
another
end.
goddamn running back.
Yeah, or a top tight end.
Mm-hmm.
Which can help your running game and your passing game. It is frustrating. And like I said, I can see why they took him over, Tajay Spears, over the Ponchatoula kid. I can see why they took him, but at the same time, it's frustrating because he doesn't give you what you took him for. So it just makes that pick look worse because you're looking at a guy going, he's not dependable. He's not producing. So I don't see this great back. I see an injury-prone back who can't do anything. We didn't even talk about Brian Brzee, and I completely forgot about mentioning him. But Brian Brzee is now on a tear with sacks. He is, I think, 4.5 sacks over the past 3 games, maybe 5 sacks over the past 3 games. I have to go back and look at my stats again.
Ever since Todd Grantham, who's now in Oklahoma at Oklahoma State, ever since Todd Grantham was basically stripped of his role, Brzee has been on a tear. Now, I still say that this team badly needs a big body defensive tackle.
Oh, yeah.
I think a player like that would make Brzee, and for that matter, the edge players, that much more effective. But Brzee has perennial Pro Bowler written all over him.
Mm-hmm. Well, you get the kid from Michigan, for example, and put him next to Brzee, and suddenly you have a formidable tandem inside. And that helps your defense tremendously. Makes your linebackers better too.
Oh yeah,
because it's keeping guys off of these linebackers. So yeah, absolutely. That it's just an incredibly athletic play that Brzee made. They bent the rules a little bit, but it was a legal play because Brzee didn't use anybody for leverage. He just jumped that high. Nathan Shepard made sure the guy got down low enough. Like I'm pushing him down, but I'm not the one rushing the kick, so I can do this because I'm looking like all I'm doing is rushing the kick and going to put my arm up, but I'm doing this so Brzee can make the leap, and thank God he did. So I didn't want to see overtime.
Yeah, thank God he did. I was dreading it. You felt overtime. It just had that kind of feel. You felt overtime coming, and then like Tyrone Tracy would have broken a 60-yard run in overtime to end it.
Yeah, Malik Neighbors.
Right. Joel Smith, was blowing up my messages. Hey, let's talk about Brzee, and he broke down what it took, and Joel, just like I told you in the minute, I'm a Hall of Fame track coach, I'm a Hall of Fame volleyball player, pro-am, but I know all that stuff. And just like I replied to Joel, I'm like, I go, yeah. I said, these are the kind of drills that I had my track kids doing. These are the kind of drills that I have done. So I've seen this kind of thing, this kind of athletic maneuver done plenty of times. What I've never seen is a 300-pound man doing it in helmets and pads, jumping over other 300-pound men.
Absolutely.
And it was a downright elite athletic maneuver.
Absolutely. It was just incredible play. And last thing before we go to Roy Blitz, I said this a second ago, but I wanted to say one other thing because it was something that popped in my head talking about special teams. Rizzy giving Hayball a new butthole on national TV for what few people watch that game. I was kind of shocked. Now, Saints fans, I expected. Saints fans, like, yeah, if Derek Allen, I mean, if Derek Allen, if Allen would have actually done that a couple of times, I probably have more respect for him. But then I'm reading comments from coaches and players from other teams going, that was really unprofessional. You shouldn't have done that and stuff like that. You know, you're a 4-8 team. Everything drives you that crazy.
Yeah.
It was, I understood, I knew exactly what he was yelling at him about.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and Moose Johnson even explained it. You know, hey, you went running up and got into that mosh pit, I guess we want to call it, in the middle instead of being the last line of defense like you're supposed to be. What the hell are you doing over there?
His brain clicked and told him this was a game of rugby. Is the only thing, Australian rules is the only thing I could figure out.
Yeah, and you're supposed to be the last line of defense. Just hang out there because if that runner comes free, there's nobody left to stop them because they're now all in the mosh pit. So I totally got why he chewed him out the way he did. I just found it hilarious. That's why I posted the meme. It's like, you know, when your dad asks you to help him and you help him wrong, that's exactly what it feels like.
Yes.
Hey, my wife says, you've been on both ends of that, so don't say that, you know. Yeah.
So. Here's the only problem I have with it. I have no problem with intense coaches. You're an athlete. I'm an athlete. We've had coaches. We've had teammates get in our faces. We've gotten in teammates' faces or athletes that we've coached faces. And I mean, forget the language. We've heard it all. I have no problem with any of that stuff as long as you're consistent about it. I had to pull out my notes, so I got the culprits right. But the pass to Neighbors that set them up in field goal position, where he broke 5 freaking tackles.
Mm-hmm.
Get in the face of Alontae Taylor, Will Harris, Hugo Amadi, Tyrann Mathieu, Jordan Howden. The same way you got in the face of Matthew Hayball. So, and for all we know, that could have happened in the locker. So you do try, believe it or not, folks. Most coaches, except the ones that love their mugs on TV, like Bill Cowher, most coaches will try to do that away from as many eyes as possible, because you're not trying to make it about you. You're trying to get through to your player. But this is an emotional game, and every now and then emotion boils over. So no, I did not have a problem with it as long as this kind of message towards mistakes and accountability, everything lacking in the Dennis Allen era, as long as it's consistent across the board. That's the only thing I have.
And my issue with that is he's a special teams coach first and foremost, and he just forgot for a minute. And he's watching special teams. I mean, you think about what they did in this game. They tried to fake punt.
They were awful.
Yeah, the special teams were awful. They gave up. Thank God there was a holding call, and I thought the holding call was even earlier than what the one they called. But they got a holding call, which took that kick return back for a touchdown. But he was on his special teams more than anything else. Mm-hmm. And it's the way he coaches because he thinks like a special teams coach. So the question is, should Rizzy be the full-time head coach? I'm not sold on it only because he feels like a position coach who is doing the head coach job, but he thinks like a position coach. And that's very hard to do. They've had successful John Harbaugh is an example of a special teams coach that's become a good head coach.
Cowher.
Yeah, Cowher too, but those guys, you have to be able to look at the entire game, and I don't think Rizzy sees the entire game. Yeah. I think he still focuses on special teams and effort. in special teams, and that's why he jumped all over Hable the way he did. What do you have going on in Bayou Blitz?
First of all, we're doing Thursday night. Brendan
Okay.
is on the road. As far as I know, he's still in the Rocky Mountains as we speak. If he escapes, and gets back, Bayou Blitz is going to be on Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central. We're really excited. We have a new guest, a gentleman named Ray Rogers. So I will try to resist the jokes all I can, but no promises.
Yippee-ki-yay.
A guy named Ray Rogers from the Urban Sports Team podcast. They cover Washington. I don't say Commanders. I don't say football team out of respect. I will try not to say the R word. Again, no promises.
Hey, it may come back.
I'm
They're
hoping.
Pushing for it.
You see the mini helmet I got on top of my Everett jersey.
I see that.
So we got Ray Rogers joining us on Thursday, and the reason he's joining us on Thursday is because I am joining his podcast tomorrow afternoon, along with another Washington podcast tomorrow evening. It's called Ref the District. Those guys are great. I've been on with them before. Over the next few days, we're going to see a lot of enemy spit swapping. We're excited about it.
I had the spit game on earlier, the 1988 Washington game, with Dexter Manley spit in the face of Jim Dombrowski to get a 15-yard penalty and push the Saints out of field goal, barely in field goal range, and Mort Anderson missed the kick. So, and that was the difference in the game. And if we go back, the 1988 season, I've talked about this several times, but that is the only 10 or more win season that the Saints did not go to the playoffs. And it's because of that loss and the Rams loss that they lost the tiebreakers. So they could go win 10 games, don't make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. I'm looking forward to that. There's a guy, he used to deal with the Bucs, but he's now with Washington, Harrison. I can't think of his first name anymore. I still follow him on Twitter, but he does covers Washington football as well. So looking forward to it. Meantime, we'll see what happens with the Saints this Sunday. I expect a pretty ugly game. I expect more LSU fans in the stands than Saints fans. I just have no expectations for this. I think Jake Haener gets the start.
I think so too, and I think he should. Yeah,
and I think, the Saints did sign a quarterback. We didn't talk about this because not that it really matters, but they signed a quarterback, some Italian guy. He was a backup for the Cowboys last year. He was with Denver in camp, and he is just a body out there. Somebody asked, why would you waste a roster space on that guy? And I'm like, okay, so let's just say for the sake of argument, Haener gets hurt. You go put Rattler in. Rattler gets a concussion. Who's your quarterback after that? You don't have Taysom. So Kamara, you're going to run.
I think he is the emergency quarterback. Yeah.
You're going to run the option with Kamara, Wildcat with Kamara every game. I'm sorry, every play. That's why he's there. He is going to be the emergency quarterback. And hey, I got it coming up in Q. That's still the 79 game. In the Q there, the 82 game where Dave Wilson and Kenny Stabler both hurt, so Guido Merkins had to start that game. I've seen stranger games.
Yep.
But anyway, thank you guys for joining us and sticking with us all this time. Just enjoy the games. That's all I can say. I don't expect to win, but I expect them to. I want to see them play well. So, don't make me watch another game like the Giants game, though. Please.
Yeah.
That was tough. Anyway, thanks, Bob. And we'll see you next time on Another Dome. Good night, everybody.
Good night.